Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Daily Coin. My name is Rory, and today is Wednesday, January the 3rd, 2016. And I have the honor and pleasure of speaking with Mr. Wade Hodges. He is new to the show, and he is a geologist, he is an explorer, and he has a great mind to share with you all today about rocks and listening to rocks and how we're going to find some gold in the future. Wade, how you doing today?
Excellent. Thanks so much, Rory.
Well, I'm glad you're here, and you've got some new technologies that we're going to talk about. And so let's get started. What do you say?
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Well, I'm very excited to speak with you. When I first learned of what you are doing, I just thought that that was the coolest thing ever. And you must be pretty proud of what you have been able to come up with there, Wade. I mean, it's a really cool piece of technology that you've developed, and it could be a real game changer for all of gold and possibly silver. Is that right?
Well, yes, absolutely. I think it's actually a very simple concept. Is one of the things I think is so powerful about it, and it does hit specifically a spot where I think the whole market, the whole industry is needing some news, some changes.
Some much needed good news.
Yeah, I've never. Oh, there's a lot of, I used to worry a lot about the supply demand relationships for a commodity like gold and trying to predict the future and when it's going to go up and go down. It's really the kind of the nature of exploration has put you in that mindset to try to anticipate the future better. And it just got tougher and tougher. And so what I've tried to focus on is the exploration side of things. If you can find the commodity at a lower price, higher grade, more oxidized, cheaper to mine, and so on, then it kind of removes me from having to wait around for something I can't predict. What's the price of gold going to be? And puts me back in charge of what I can do something about, which is improving the technology for discovery.
Exactly.
Which has been where I've spent my life anyway. So.
Yeah, and your company is Nevada Exploration, and your stock symbol is NGE. Is that right?
Yes.
And
we're listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange, the Venture Exchange, and then also in the U.S. on the OTC, NVDEF.
Okay. And I'll make sure that those stock symbols are below in the description for the interview. But I really, like I said, Wade, I'm very excited to speak with you. I think that what you're doing, if you would just kind of describe what you're able to do, and you're out in Nevada, you're roaming around the desert from what I've seen, and which is a very cool place. I mean, I've been to the high desert up in the northern part of Nevada, and it was actually a changed my life when I visited there.
Oh, really?
Yes, it was really an incredible experience. I was out on the land for 7 days, and we were about 7,000 feet in elevation, and it was anyway.
you could see a long ways and all that.
Oh yeah, yeah. And at night you could see we could see satellites floating through space. That's how clear it was, and how high in elevation we were. It was really cool.
It's interesting because I take all this for granted, I guess, and I don't really appreciate the people that have not had the experience of Nevada. Now that you mention it, is kind of unique.
It's very unique. I mean, I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and I've only been there one time. And before I am no longer here, I will make it back, because it was, like I said, it was really an incredible, life-altering experience. I mean, to be able to lay on the desert floor and to experience what is out there in space, because when you're in the city, you can't see the Milky Way. You can't see the stars. You can't see any of that.
And then when you're outside of the city, Nashville, you're contending with the forest. You've got the trees everywhere
and hills and everything else, and pollution and so forth. I mean, it's just
it just presses in on you.
It is. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, it's really amazing. So your office is like the coolest place.
Well, it is. I really don't like to talk too much about it because I feel almost embarrassed that I get to live every day what a lot of people work at something they don't like to do to be able to take a vacation for 10 days.
Well, tell us what you're doing out there, because it's very cool. And like I said just a minute ago, it really has the potential to be a game changer, in particular for gold, because Nevada is one of the richest gold state in the country, and we've about drained it of the low hanging fruit. And what you're able to do is locate some more low hanging fruit by way of a new technology.
Yeah, precisely. Nevada is unique, as we've just been discussing. It's also unique geologically. You did mention that Nevada is, known for quite a lot of gold production. It's actually has the largest concentration of multi-million ounce deposits per unit area of any place on the planet.
Wow.
It's not just a large source of gold production in the U.S., but like I said, largest concentration of large gold deposits per unit area on the entire planet. But in the meantime, there's a lot we can do to see if we can't improve the technology of discovery. So back to Nevada being unique, it's interesting that probably 50% of the area that has so much gold per unit area, 50% of that state of Nevada is covered by sand and gravel. So you're lying out there in the desert looking up at the stars. You're either you're at the top of a mountain range looking out over, a number of mountain ranges, or you're down in one of the valleys between the mountain ranges. And those valleys are all covered by sand and gravel. And beneath you, underneath that sand and gravel, are more mountain ranges. They're just covered. They're just filled in. These basins are filled in.
Okay.
With material you can't see. And so all this, the geology that created this situation, the mountains have been faulted up. It's just covered, it's not in their mountains as much as it's in their valleys, if you will.
That makes sense.
And so the problem becomes, even though that's such a compelling argument for exploring in Nevada, thinking that you can find more gold because it exists, the problem gets very complicated when you can't use the conventional technologies that have found all this gold in areas where the rocks are covered by sand and gravel. And so that's a huge opportunity in my mind. I was tasked with finding gold deposits for several majors, and with a quite amazingly, I realized after my 40-year career, I've been now associated with more than 30 million ounces of new gold.
That's quite the record.
Well, it is, and 9 different deposit stories, discovery stories I could, wax on about. And it amounts to, the entire state of Nevada has produced about a little over 200 million ounces of gold. And so that amounts to, 30 million ounces divided by 200 million. That's something like, a little more than 10% of all the gold that's been found in the state.
That's pretty good.
And so it's been a lot of fun.
Well, and I wanted to kind of point you in another direction here, Wade. I mean, because as I'm sure you're aware, the mining industry as a whole is suffering right now. I mean, there's mines that are shutting down. There's mines that are slowing down. I mean, Endeavor just announced that they're, going to mothball, well, maybe not mothball, but they're going to put in maintenance mode 25% of their mining operation. I mean, and I would think that what you're doing would be beneficial to some of the to someone like Endeavor or to someone even like First Majestic or any of the other large mining operations. I mean, is that right?
Well, absolutely. Their business, as time has evolved, has been focused more and more on the production end of the value-added profile, if you will.
Yeah, and they don't have any resources at this point for making any new discoveries, and that's where you come in, right?
Well, precisely. They run out of resources that are economic, that they can mine for a profit at the current price and cost structure. And so what you have to do is either hang around, do this mothballing business, and then wait and hope for the price to go up to where you can get back to work. Or the other thing to do is to focus on the low end of that supply curve, and that's to see if you can't find ways to find better gold deposits. And that's, of course, what it is that we've been trying to do. I remember back in the late 90s being asked, well, Wade, you found a lot of gold. Now, what are you going to do for us, this next year? And at that time, as is often the case, the price of gold had gone through a down cycle, and production was being squeezed, and everybody was about cutting costs. And so the first thing they do is cut costs associated with exploration and development. The research that needs to go on to keep you at the leading edge of new technologies for discovery gets curtailed. It's the first thing that goes. And that has just been beating the industry up. That's why the industry is in such a sorry state right now. And that's why I think people are not understanding some of the data out there. They see that the price, you spend more money, for example, on exploration, historically you find more gold. No big deal. It makes
2
sense.
plus 2 still equals 4.
Yeah, and then when you found more gold, now you can mine, you can produce more gold. And it used to be, every geologist, if somebody's got a story about how they found a gold deposit, and people would like to, get involved in the process, but it's gotten more and more complicated. It takes more and more time to understand the details. So people just tend to look at exploration, discovery as something that's just based on luck, and all I can do, all I need to do is focus on spending more money in exploration, and then those guys will try, they'll find something. And what's happened recently in the statistics as we focus on production is that we miss the point that even though we've spent more money on exploration in the last decade than almost, I think in recorded history, we have found less gold. And so there's a major mismatch between that very simple relationship. And it's telling us that we need to all step back. The producers are stepping back and scratching their heads, what's the future look like? And because I was lucky enough to be in exploration very early on, was in a position to recognize this pattern and start to focus on, we have got to find better tools. And so, back to Nevada, the one tool, the one place that no one has ever spent any time looking was recognizing that underneath this sand and gravel, there's also groundwater, which is very odd to think. You go into the high desert, you don't think in terms of a lot of water. It's a desert, for crying out loud.
Exactly.
And which is one of the reasons that it goes unnoticed. People aren't really paying attention. But in fact, all through Nevada, all these basins are filled, they're like large lakes. And the lakes are filled with quite a bit of sand and gravel, but the pore space in that sand and gravel contains vast quantities of groundwater. And it's that groundwater that interacts then with the underlying bedrock, that bedrock we can't see, we can't prospect with existing tools. And that medium groundwater picks up kind of a chemical scent as it interacts with an oxidizing gold deposit. And that scent can be followed back to its source. It's really no different than what the 49ers did when they had a gold pan. In the 49ers case, they tanned the stream bed, and the gold particles are heavier than the rest of the sand particles, and you could concentrate a trail of gold in the bottom of your pan, and you'd you then follow that gold trail upstream. You followed it upstream with your gold pan until you didn't get any more gold in the pan. And at that point, those old timers needed a new technology. They had to stop. There was a bit of a pause. They scratched their heads. They realized they need to go into the bedrock. They need to get underground. They need to start moving actual hard rock. So they had to figure out, how to do that. And what we're doing is really not that much different. We're just using a second generation mass spectroscopy, a fancy piece of equipment that actually the environmental industry developed for us, with their concerns over, different, potential carcinogens and so on in their water supply. And I just turned that tool to actually answering the question, how much gold is in this particular batch of groundwater? And the thing we observed right away, it's very simple, is why is there so much more gold in this particular area of sand and gravel than in the adjacent areas? And what we're doing is simply following that scent, if you will, back to its bedrock source.
So in essence, you're panning for gold just like the 49ers were doing. Yep. You're just doing it you have a different pan.
That's precisely it. It's like gold panning for the 21st century, and it's one of the things that makes the concept very compelling with a large appeal. People can understand that. I think their vision of an exploration geologist really hasn't changed much from the old prospector with a burrow behind him and a cross pick and shovel. And that's what
my
everybody
always
thinks.
sees.
Yeah.
Some dude with a big beard and, dirty blue jeans.
Yeah, pretty much. And, and that's really with that concept. I mean, we're building on what those guys were able to come up with. And all we're doing is, I think we've skipped over the medium of water, in working with and when you see the gold, it's a lot more exciting than listening to some guy on a phone line talk about analytical results and fancy technology. But that's of course what we're involved in.
Are you drilling down into to it, or are you digging, or what? How do you get to this groundwater to start the panning?
Yeah, good question. There's a whole series of hurdles, and that was one of them. We could understand in concept it'd be nice and could work if we could get access to the groundwater table, but how do you do that? And so that became the first problem that we decided, well, let's see if we can't solve that rather than just sit around and wait for somebody else to, come up with a solution. And so we developed a thing called a geoprobe, and have been applying it to the deserts now in Nevada for a number of years, been able to collect consistently groundwater samples. Now, this geoprobe is a piece of equipment about the size of a bobcat. It pounds basically an 1.5 inch diameter rod. It's like a steel straw, just pounds it into the ground.
Okay.
If you go to our website, you'll see a picture of this thing operating, and it was, featured on an episode of the History Channel, How the Earth Was Made. So you can get a visual of what I'm talking about.
Very cool.
But it's a very effective tool. We're the first, and as far as I know, only company to be applying it consistently. And we're now a number of years ahead of any potential competition. And so it creates a barrier to entry, and it allows people to, see that, well, there is somebody to follow here. and part of my goal right now is to bring this story to explain better what it is we're doing to a larger audience. Clearly, until we get to a point to where we feel that we've got enough value captured for our stakeholders, to convince everybody by showing, the prospect map or the map of where the gold deposits are, isn't going to help us. It'll just, everybody will be very interested in how do we, as shareholders, how do we how do we benefit from all this work? And so now the point is to go ahead, perhaps be a little less paranoid, talk more about it, share the story so people can understand what we're doing, and that's one of the objectives for this next year.
Well, and how does this next year look to you, Wade? I mean, are you getting some positive signs? I mean, are you moving up the channel, as it were? I mean, is your pan
Yes.
filling more? Are you seeing more gold flakes in the pan?
Yeah. What we react to are the number of golden or the groundwater samples that have gold, plus 80 other trace metals that are often associated with gold. So this isn't just gold; it's also the other trace metals, arsenic, antimony, mercury, so on, that you can also pick up patterns in the groundwater chemistry.
Okay.
And so the goal is to look at that data as kind of like a fingerprint. We've looked at 30 known gold deposits to kind of register what it is we're dealing with, to know what threshold values are, what values are important. It's not that difficult. Anybody could go out and take a sample of water and ask the question how much gold is in it, and get in a lab somewhere now to tell them. But part of what we offer is that we've done it now for 50,000 samples, and so we've got the ability to know what some value. If you go out and get a number of 100, well, does that mean that you should mortgage the house and bet the bank, or should you? Well, that's kind of a yawn, or just keep going. And so having that context has been an extremely important part of what it is that we have to offer to the industry.
Yeah.
And so,
I mean, 50,000 samples that's a pretty good fingerprint.
Well, exactly. And then you've got 30 known gold mines that you can subset. Look at those 50,000 samples, look at the 30 known gold mines, and then you look at, well, what other samples do we have that are not related to any known gold mines that have the same fingerprint? It's just not much more complicated than that. And each of those becomes then, in our world, a target. Now, we're still learning as we go, and you can't make the assumption that every one of these gold and trace metal anomalies in groundwater is going to be a huge economic new gold deposit.
Right.
But you can make the statement that you're definitely resetting the low-hanging fruit. You're bending the branches down closer to you, so to speak, and so that you can keep those resources, which are always scarce, focused on the very best places. And that's where we are now. We've got 5 projects that we've gone ahead and staked the mineral rights to, so we're comfortable that we actually own something now. But that doesn't mean we don't have additional targets. We have quite a few other places that we could stake claims on. And so that's an aspect of our business model that allows us to make statements that we have an inventory, if you will, of projects that carries no holding costs. So we've already done a significant amount of work to be able to identify areas that we could then quickly stake claims on, and then move into more of a development mode. And so that part of the story is in progress. We continue to take groundwater samples. There's quite a number of areas in the state that are permissive, meaning that they're off board of rocks that have hosted gold deposits in the past, but are covered by relatively thin covers of sand and gravel. And so those areas become then the first places you want to then collect groundwater samples.
Yeah, it's much more attractive.
And so it's a process of winnowing. We're well along in it. And so this next year, what we want to do is bring the story to a wider audience. We've because of the time spent and the money spent in developing this concept, we're now in a very good position to start. It's like having a production line, assembly line, and we're ready to start it up.
That sounds great, and it really sounds like not only are you a geologist, but you're a researcher, almost like a paralegal. I mean, as far as just digging into the nuts and bolts of how to make this thing happen.
Well, it's one aspect of the entire gold business that I just find very compelling. Is gold is a precious metal.
Yes.
Gold and silver are precious metals,
Precious.
and they're not simple commodities. It's not like lead, zinc, copper, and so on. They have clear industrial uses, and the supply-demand curves are based on how you use them, and so on. Gold is tied to this human emotion. Okay,
exactly.
People want it, and I've always found it kind of perplexing as to why. Why? What makes gold so unusual? Well, there's a number of things we're all aware of. You can go through the checklist, but for me, if you have a society that is no longer able to find precious metals, it seems pretty simple. You're just going out into the earth, you're digging up some commodity that we want, some metal. And if we can no longer find precious metals, what makes us think we can find anything else that is precious, that's worth having? Now, it's a statement you have to think a bit about, but basically, to find gold and to produce it, you have to have a lot of very complex disciplines working well together. From management to, as you said, I mean, I've had to understand the mining rights, the legal aspects, the permitting issues, the environmental problems and trade-offs, the exploration, geophysics, geochemistry. I mean, the list of disciplines is truly impressive, and it's one of the few areas where, in order to be successful, you do have to have quite a breadth of general knowledge. And I think that's the challenge, to the industry today, is that we need to bring some of these this focus back to bear, and how do we get these disciplines working together once again? And it starts, of course, with exploration. You have to be able to find the stuff first.
If you can't find it, then everything else is off the table.
Well, there's lots of people know how to produce, build a gold mine. As complex as that process is. But before you can build it, you have to be able to find the thing. And you need to find any more. Investors are sending a very clear message that they need better filters, better tools. They're tired of investing, doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting different results. They don't like to be told that something works. They need to be shown that what you're talking about works. And so that's part of our objective here for 2016 is to first beat the drum, let people be aware. At the very least, here's a story worth following. Look at it close, definitely. Pay attention, and everyone's going to have their own, how many breadcrumbs do they need before they're going to start picking them up and following them. And everybody is free to make those kind of choices. And my job is really the simplest one of them all, is just to wake up every day, pay attention to the clues, and follow them in the belief that there is no real complexity in life. If it's complicated, it's simply because we don't quite understand how things work. And so that's something I can do something about. Let's see if we can't, pay closer attention to what's going on and move this whole situation forward. So it's a relatively stress-free sort of environment that I get to wake up in out here in Nevada.
Yeah.
I'm not hemmed in by cities, people pushing and shoving. There's not a lot of people racing to Nevada to try to build big cities,
Out in the desert?
No, it's pretty open, and there are big centers, of course, of growth, and Reno and Las Vegas get on the map, but that's a very small part of a very good place to be looking for large gold deposits.
Yeah, the Reno and Las Vegas are very small pieces of the Nevada picture. And like I was saying earlier, Wade, we were up in the north high country, and it was when you first started talking about the water, all I could think of was this stream that ran through our campground, and there was not only there was a stream, but there was two different natural hot tubs. I mean,
Oh yeah, hot springs. Yep.
yeah, hot springs that were just, I mean, it was incredible. So you had this, you know, ice cold runoff water right next to literally boiling hot water. I mean, it was probably it wasn't quite boiling temperature, but it was well over 100 degrees, and it was pretty cool.
That's one of the things that makes Nevada so unique, and it's the reason you're seeing that contrast between hot and cold waters, because geologically Nevada is centered over a relatively high heat flow, and what you're looking at is the end stages of larger processes that have operated throughout Nevada to produce, one of the other side effects is all this gold deposits that have been produced from this basically rising hot water.
Oh, okay.
It's a fascinating story. I'd encourage any of your listeners, while they're waiting for the price of gold to rise, and they kind of got an idea that that there must be some sort of things going on they don't understand. They might take a look at just the geology and push back. I thought that the History Channel series How the Earth Was Made was an awesome opportunity for anyone interested in any natural resources to get an understanding, to be able to listen to a geologist speak for a few minutes before they roll their eyes in the back of their head, because that series compresses the time involved in these geologic processes using the computer graphics and so on.
Right.
And you can actually bring it down to where, I can kind of see that now. It's like a door swinging or, things moving. And so you can get what it's like to have a fault that's moved a very small amount over a number of years, what kind of offsets and effects it can have. And so it's a good thing to very simply, have a fun experience. You learn a lot about how the Earth was formed,
and how gold is formed.
Wow. Yeah. I thought it was interesting that I got the last 8 minutes of a segment dedicated to America's gold on the last episode of the last season.
Wow.
And I thought it was very interesting because in my worldview, most of life that we live is really just the unintended consequence of man's search for gold. We started a long time ago interested in this yellow metal, and I think likely it was the fairer sex that encouraged guys to go out and get more of this stuff. And so they were motivated to, do all kinds of things, cut down forests, build ships, recruit crews, get the finances, provision, sail out of the side of the land, searching for one of the things was this elusive precious metal. And in the process, they made all sorts of discoveries.
That's a very interesting insight right there. That's really cool, because I think you are probably a lot closer to the truth than most with that thought. I mean,
it's still valid today. I don't think it's changed a bit.
I don't think so either. I mean,
I'm looking for gold, but I'm learning all about water, the chemistry of water, where it comes from, how it moves. And of course, one of the unintended consequences is there's other industries and groups of people also interested in water. And so we find ourselves at the forefront of that whole area of investigation. The quality of the quantity of water has been kind of foremost in people's minds. They want to have enough water, but now we're also getting more concerned about the quality of that water.
Exactly.
And one of the, what we're learning is, the water quality changes. There's a lot more in the way of dirty elements that nature's put in there. It has nothing to do with man's, activities. And the question is simply, well, why? Why is there so much arsenic, antimony, lead, zinc, and gold in this in this water. Oh my goodness!
There's gold in that there glass.
Well, and so yeah, the geoprobe allows us to sample these patterns with a very minimal disturbance to the surface environment. And so, people are very conscious of the trade-off of, disrupting the surface, the environment that we also have to live on.
Right.
And so this allows us to push that technology in the right direction by still retrieving vast amounts of information, but very non-disruptive sorts of processes. And so it's a
So you found a minimal invasive process that harkens back to the old time prospector that everybody sees in their mind's eye, but brings it into the 21st century, and you're on the way to adding to your 30 million ounces of discovery.
You got it. You're hired. I could go back to doing it now.
I mean, that's got to be very satisfying, Wade. I mean, seriously, to know that you've brought 30 million ounces of like we've been talking about, of a precious metal, and it's called precious for a reason, and it's called money. It's called money for a reason as well. I mean, people have used it for trade for 5,000 years. I mean, can't overlook that, and that can't be understated in all of this. I mean, you're actually looking for money.
Well, the making money. I think most people think of making money as completing a successful trade. You buy something low and sell it for high, and in effect, you just moved money from somebody's pocket into yours.
Right.
You haven't really made money. Making money means you have to go out and find gold. You have to bring in something brand new into existence. And it's sitting there. It isn't really that complicated. These gold deposits are big, messy places. You'd think we could do a better job as a society, as individual geologists, in finding these places. And it's just, we don't need to forget anything we've learned. We just need to realize that right now we need to improve the technology just a bit, and we'll continue. We'll move this thing forward.
Well, you are doing your part as far as introducing new technologies. Like I've said many times, it's very cool what you're doing. I think that it's really awesome, and I wish you nothing but success with everything. Seriously, I mean, because you deserve it. I mean, what you're doing for me and my family, actually, I mean, I'm very grateful. I mean, because we need more gold. Period. We have to have more gold, because what we know, and at this point in time, is, as we were talking about a minute ago, Wade, the mines are shutting down. They're slowing down. They're not producing as much. It's a lot harder to find. It's a messy operation, and what you're doing is cleaning it up somewhat and making it a lot easier for people to get to it and to know that it's there. It's right there. I can tell you with certainty that it's going to be very, very close to that spot, and that's a good thing. I mean,
well, and I like having fun. Reducing the complexity, explaining things, making it clear. Nobody likes confusing situations. We all hate uncertainty about the future. We just don't know what to do, and we spend a lot of time talking about it. And I just hate to see that in people's faces when I come across them. It seems like there's more of that than there ever has been. And if we can just have enough courage to stand in the face of these things we don't understand, and realize that every one of us has some piece of the solution. We've come across in our different pathways and different experiences something that is important to understanding how we can go forward. And right now we have a heck of an opportunity as we all pause to try to decide what's going on, not just with gold, but with everything else. And I think in the end, it actually will bring people back together. My favorite analogy coming from the scientific end is it's a real simple. If you imagine yourself being involved in building a building, and an engineer comes in and says, well, the building has now gotten to 100 feet high. And another engineer says, no, wait a minute. I have 150 feet. Okay, the people around that table don't stop and immediately go, well, let's compromise. Let's figure out, let's just have the difference and keep building. No, everybody in that room stops and they begin to think. They don't race to some conclusion. They just, well, we have to do something. Oh my goodness. No, they are doing something. They're thinking.
Right.
They're thinking, well, how did you come to your conclusion? And somebody else says, well, how did you come to your conclusion? And they start to understand what's this conflict, this apparent complexity is teaching everyone. Okay, and as they get closer to understanding the underlying assumptions, they figure out what is true and what is not true and how the world works. And so everybody benefits in that sort of a process. And I just wish that, that I could get that understanding into people's minds. And it's gold, the search for gold is a way to do that larger, purpose. So, and I don't know.
No, it's beautiful. That's well said. I mean, seriously, because that's what we need. We need more people to understand what's actually happening, and they don't. And we could speak for another hour on that aspect very easily. But I know you've got things to do, and that's actually a great place to wait for our next conversation, Wade. And the next time that we speak, we'll pick it up right there. And we've been speaking with Wade Hodges from Nevada Exploration. And Wade, tell people how they can follow your work, and what's going on there.
Well, we do have a updated website initiative. It should be completed in like the next week. I'll give the guys a little more time, 2 weeks. Okay. And that website is nevadaexploration.com. If you find your way to the presentations area, there's a couple of videos that I put together to try to explain more slowly and in more detail exactly what we're doing. Draw your attention to the frequently asked questions, because I've had a lot of feedback, people with good questions. My goal is to get really more people involved in the story. I don't think it really does any of us a service to give people the answers. What you want is a narrative that can draw people in, and they can be walked through using their own deductive processes, to the solution. So go to that website, nevadaexploration.com, and then, of course, there you can find where we are a publicly traded company, of course, and so that information is located on the website as well.
Okay.
Sign up for our news releases. You'll get copies of information direct to your email, and so I look forward to enlarging our audience.
Hopefully, we'll be able to help you with that, Wade. Get some more people on board and get the word out to some folks. And I certainly appreciate all your time, and I'll let you get back to your beautiful office out there.
Thanks so much, Rory.
All right. I'll talk to you soon.
You have a good day. Bye-bye.